Hello Capricorn, and welcome to your monthly horoscope for September for the Sun or the Ascendant. As ever, I'm going to give you the key details to look out for, but please stay with me as I dive deep to give you in forensic detail all the key dates and times particularly relevant to your sign. Now, as you know, your ruler Saturn gets a bad rap, and it is in retrograde all through this month. And it is unfortunately back in a rather abrasive right angle with Uranus, the planet of freedom. Your ruler is very much about constraint and discipline. So I think when it comes to the more free-spirited part of your situation, that's kind of a cautionary note. But Saturn actually forges a really terrific angle to Mars, the planet of passion, in the last 10 days of this month. So I can't wait to share that with you. Now, of course, the big talking point this month for a lot of people will be Mercury's retrograde. But Mercury is actually in a sector where it can really influence your career and your connection to influential people. It may be in shadow for the first 10 days, but it's forging an awesome link with Mars, the planet of drive that's exalted in your sign. And Mars in your sixth house is giving you more physical vitality. So I think if there is a goal that you want to make progress with, that combination is exciting. So despite Mercury's retrograde from the 10th, lots to share with you about that. And then if you really want to reach for the stars in terms of success, there's a glorious new moon on the 25th. So lots to share with you. If you are wanting to embrace more serious astrology and rise above this Zodiac forecast, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you a roadmap that can guide you for the rest of your life, help you to identify opportunities, but also see patterns that may have made at times your life more challenging and learn how to work around these. But in my special offer of 30% off, if you order this year, I'll give you your year 2023 forecast within this package, but also the rest of 2022 free. Please see the link below. And finally, if you are new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you so much for your support. But if not, please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Thank you. So Capricorn, your September forecast begins with the Sun in your sister Earth sign of Virgo. The 9th house is a great place to embrace any love of travel, of variety, of spontaneity, of your more independent spirit. You're such a hard worker, you can be very dedicated, and what the Sun, and once it's joined by Venus on the 5th, are asking you to do is to give yourself permission to change things up, to break out from constraints. Now, once the Sun forges a fantastic link with Uranus in week 2, and that's repeated with Venus in a beautiful trine with Uranus from the 17th through to the 22nd, a wonderful time to get off the beaten track. You know, if you can head off somewhere, even last minute, if it's not something you've planned, it can be something that really gives you a sense of freedom. And you know, embracing the need for adventure is something that's very important for all of us, especially if you have a lot of demands. But of course, that right angle between Saturn, your ruler, and Uranus is actually a little counter intuitive in terms of being risk-taking. So maybe what the angle between the Sun and Uranus and Venus and Uranus is saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be the things that cost us money that give you pleasure. So it can also be if you give yourself permission to change your routines. And that can be something that can be very gratifying and fulfilling. It is true, however, that Mars in that very hard-working, industrious part of your situation, house 6, forging that link with Mercury at the very start of this month, does give you a platform to do something around a professional application or pushing towards something that you do feel ambitious about, and you can thrust forwards in a very meaningful and purposeful way. I think Venus moving into your 9th house does change things from the 5th to a large degree, because it gives you a desire for variety, but also for your senses to be aroused in a different way. So if you have an outing with a group of friends, or you take a day off and just change things up in terms of what you listen to or what you watch, anything that really pleases your senses, that's fresh and different, will be something you really appreciate. Yet the sun does come into a quincunx, which is 150 degrees, and challenging from the 10th through to the 15th. I think basically, as much as the sun and Venus are encouraging you to be expansive, Saturn in the 2nd house is constantly asking you to think about the cost, but also about how you feel about yourself. So if changing something and being more daring goes against the side of your nature that is more risk averse and more aware of maintaining the status quo, it could be a little bit of inner pressure that you feel, or you may be tempted to compare yourself to other people's situations. Try not to do that. We all have a tendency to do that from time to time. But I think if you are thinking about splashing out on something that really isn't essential, it's probably not the best of times to do so from the 10th through to the 15th. However, on the 10th, we do have the Mercury retrograde beginning. The first 10 days of this month, it was in shadow, and that could have seen you thinking about your options professionally. But once it goes into retrograde through to the 23rd, you may have to retrace your steps around some goals and ambitions. I think one of the things that you could be really yearning for in your life in general is a sense of variety, or the unexpected. And yet Saturn in the 2nd house is wanting you to feel secure about your foundations, and that's where the tension could come. Part of you wants change, another part of you can resist it. So I think Mercury's retrograde could see you asking yourself a lot of questions about what you want to do for your work, how you present yourself, how you raise your profile. Is there some retraining or courses that you could do that would help your future prospects in terms of your ambitions? In week 3, however, we do have the sun moving into an opposition with Neptune. But I need to tell you about the full moon of the 10th too. So here we have the sun in house 9 and the moon in house 3. If there is something you want to change, but someone close to you wants to resist, some heated discussions are possible at this time. And the reason that there could be some tension is that Uranus is actually dissecting those two positions, not unhelpfully, to be honest. And Uranus is asking you to try to recreate your passions, or find ways to ignite excitement in your world. And because your thinking axis is being aroused in your situation, the 9th house is your highest hopes, the 3rd house is your everyday conversations. I think maybe you can have quite a lot of conversations. Maybe they can be some challenges. Maybe you're going to lay down the gauntlet to someone, perhaps they're going to push you about some of your ideas. But I think in week 3, once the sun goes opposite Neptune, Neptune can distort as much as, create a potential to really lift our souls up, particularly through the arts, particularly through film, particularly through your personal creativity. So if there has been some discussions that have gone on, it's possible that you can think someone's being unrealistic, or maybe they feel that you're trying to trip the light fantastic, which is not something that you've probably been accused of many times before. But of course we can all have our moments when we daydream, and it's important to daydream. But I think the sun being opposite Neptune can make us a bit unrealistic. So if you have a master plan about doing something completely different in your world, your natural instincts to check things out, probe for the reality of it, make sure that it feels genuine, that's going to protect you more than some other zodiac signs, to be honest, with that particular influence. Now, I've already told you about Venus's angle to Uranus, but just to remind you, it's the 17th to the 22nd. A wonderful time to get together with some friends. Just do it last minute. Or if you're lucky enough to have someone invite you out on a date, there can be a lot of excitement around it. It can be really fun to push back on that side of your nature that can be so sensible. But you also have that wonderful sense of humour. And that can be something that you can kid yourself about, your tendency to be very safety first. The 16th to the 22nd, however, sees probably the most important influence of this month for your sign in particular, other than Saturn square with Uranus. And that's because Pluto's been in your sign since 2008. I think you've gone through a lot of changes since then. It depends on exactly where your sun is, and also if you have other inner planets in Capricorn, which is possible, probable for a lot of Capricornians, but for some early born Capricorns, they can be in Sagittarius. But the sun is about our potential, the ninth house is about growth, adventure, independence. Pluto in your sign is about your individual purpose, your body. So the potential to change something in a very profound way from the 16th to the 22nd presents itself. Now that could be in your physical environment around you, or it could be deep within you. If you're someone who's really yearning to shake things up, that can be an awesome aspect, really. But if you're born right at the start of Capricorn, you would have got the blast of Pluto in 2008, maybe even 2007. For some, 2006, if you're born, right on the winter solstice at 0 degrees, 1 degrees Capricorn, then Pluto would have been affecting you right from about 206, right through to about 210. And it just depends where you are in the process. So if you're born later in Capricorn, the last 3 or 4 days, you're really feeling the power of Pluto now. And so big changes could come for you. But on the 23rd, we have the autumnal equinox, and that ushers in the third cardinal quadrant. Very important in Western astrology, because this is a 13-week period where we're all going to be focused very much on how we relate. But for you, this particular event is very much to do with your potential in terms of your goals, ambitions, your aspirations to be successful in a very Capricornian way. Status, respect, admiration for people, those more material gains that can be important. But of course, the sign of Libra, which is ushered in, is also about detachment. It's also about fairness, and of course, those relationships. So if you can achieve your goals whilst embracing those values, you'll really be on a winning ticket. But there is a cazimi between the Sun and Mercury on that day. It's very brief, and there could be an offer that comes to you that absolutely thrills you. And it could be a new job, it could be an advancement in an existing organisation, or perhaps you're going to really rev up your desire to improve your lot. But then Mercury inverts back into your sister sign of Virgo, which of course it governs. So the last phase of this month actually sees Mercury also forge a very powerful link with Pluto. And the truth of a matter could become very, very clear. If there is something that you've had your own reality around that other people don't necessarily agree with and have pushed back on you a little bit, that may have been uncomfortable. But you could update your reality in quite a profound way with this Mercury retrograde. Please don't see the Mercury retrograde only as a potential for glitches. But of course, the ninth house can be about contracts and travel. So if you are involved in negotiating something or going somewhere, particularly overseas, it is going to be important to be meticulously precise in the way that Virgo can help you to be. But on the 24th, Venus is in an opposition with Neptune. You could have the most mind-blowingly wonderful conversation with somebody. If you are someone who's really into the arts, culture, history, literature, music, performance, film, something really uplifting can happen around that date. But also if you meet someone for the first time, you could be absolutely smitten, but I wouldn't give your heart away too quickly. Use your natural tendency to be a little bit skeptical. Use that to protect you, because that is going to be a good thing to do. But the 25th sees an amazing new moon in the sign of Libra, and it's amazing because it also, on its 7th house cusp, the descendant connects with Jupiter, the planet of fortune, which is in retrograde, but it's giving you an opportunity to reform where you live, how you live there, or your emotional outlook. So I think your thrust for success, if it's in keeping with how you feel, so if you go for something and it actually feels right, or you can work in an environment where you feel it's very inclusive and it works for you at a more emotional or personal level, it's very good for your family, then you can really get some uplift in the following month. Venus also climbs right to the top of your scope on the 29th. Your people skills, your diplomacy, your ability to work well with people is definitely going to be enhanced. And also in the last 10 days of this month, your ruler Saturn, as I mentioned before, forges a brilliant link with Mars. So the link between Mars and Saturn, your ruler, despite Saturn's retrograde, suggests that if you're hardworking, determined, pushing forwards, being aware of the precision of situations, Mars in the 6th, very Virgo, and even though it's in Gemini, so therefore communicating well. But the link with Saturn in your 2nd house is about money. So hard work can bring a reward. And because the new moon is high in the sky, the link between your ability to see an opportunity or to present yourself in a way which receives a lot of recognition, you come across very well in an interview or a presentation, but underneath that there's that very driven Capricorn energy to do things very productively, systematically and thoroughly, punch across your ideas, then a big opportunity and a big breakthrough are possible as this month draws to a close. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Capricorn. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, take care, and goodbye.